I'm not playing around. Only adults can watch this video. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for being here. My name is Gavin. I'm so glad that we are back together on this Monday. Hope you've had a terrific weekend, or whenever you are. Rewatch crew, I hope you had a great couple of days. I had a restful couple of days, but I'm glad to be back with you because so much is going on in our community in crime. And so, what better day to have a guest on today to talk about some of the stuff that's happening. We want to focus a little bit on the Kevin Mullins case, some other stuff happening down there in Kentucky. But before we go over there, I do want to remind you guys that on Wednesday, we are going to be having a guest on. It is Anna Sonoda. She is a licensed clinical social worker, and we're talking about the prevention of basically what we're trying to do is understand how predators do their thing, why they do their thing, so that we can protect our loved ones, especially our children. So that's going to be on Wednesday. If you would please, if you have any questions that you would like Anna to answer, head on over to my website and click on this little icon up in the corner. That's my contact me page, and send in your questions using this form. Okay. With that, I don't want to belabor it anymore. We want to get into what we're talking about tonight. So please welcome Elizabeth Jones, Hillbilly Crime.
Hi,
Welcome.
Gavin.
How
Thanks
you
for
doing?
having me.
It's been too long. I was gone for CrimeCon, then I was off, and then the week just passed. I can't believe that we haven't chatted in like 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, since before you left. So I'm glad that you and your family are all back safe on this side of the
Yes,
country.
we're on this side of the Atlantic. Spent a little time in London for CrimeCon, and then took a little vacation with my wife. We gallivanted around northern Portugal, and I guess that'd be central western Spain. We went up into Spain one day. It was a total bust because I wanted to go to Spain to grab lunch. And I lived in South America. I know what the freaking siesta is, but we go up into Spain to grab lunch, and it's in the middle of the siesta. And it was my wife who recognized it. She's like, "Is this the siesta?" I look around, I'm like, "This is exactly what the siesta looks like. I think that we are out of luck. Let's go back to Portugal." So that's what we did. That was
Wow,
funny.
living the life. Living the
Oh yeah,
life.
we're jet setters. We are just, that's just us. That's it. No, it was a once in 25-year trip. That's what it was. Hadn't ever done that together, but yeah, had a good time. Thanks for
It's great.
yeah. So what's been going on with you?
We're in the hurry up and wait stage with the Mullins case. I don't think anything, really important has happened recently that you're not caught up on. The rumor mill is still twirling about, and you get more stories that are starting to come forward, but people still just do not want to come forward publicly or have their name associated with anything, you know.
Just too small of a place, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the latest ones that I've become aware of, she's married. She was married then in 21, whenever her incident took place. And she's married now. She has children. Her children are in the local school system. Even if she could prove somehow her what her story, what would happen? Ben Fields got 6 months in jail. Nothing would happen.
Yeah,
And her
that's
life. her life would be turned upside down. You know, her husband would then know, and her children would then know, and you know, they would subject themselves to all of that for what? You know,
Yeah. Well, I mean, in small places, it's really hard to be anonymous. I do think that
yeah.
there would be more friends that come out of the woodwork for that person than they believe or that they can imagine. I think a lot of friends would come out and have his or her back. I think that would happen. Or her back. I mean, you brought it up, but still in a small town. Plus, yeah, Fields. For those of you who don't know, okay, Ben Fields was a deputy sheriff. He was also the guy that did the what do they call them? Ankle monitors in Letcher County. He pleaded guilty to basically SAing women in the Letcher County jail. Do I have a picture of that? Letcher County Jail is in the basement of the courthouse, and uh, and it only happened after two women came forward, a woman named Sabrina Adkins and a woman named Jennifer Hill. So the what was it? The Attorney General's office started investigating, and he ultimately took a plea deal. But he pled guilty to SAing three women. There were three victims, and he got 6 months in jail. And that's it. And that was, I guess, that was the seed that was planted that ended up causing Mickey Stines to shoot Kevin Mullins. So I
I,
guess is that a good enough summation? I guess.
it is. It's a really great one. And I also found out a very detailed description of how Miss Jennifer Hill died.
Yeah.
The late, the lady who you just had up there on the
Yeah.
screen is Miss Jennifer Hill. And, you know, all we know about her now is, you know, what we see in the documents and what we hear with this case. But she was, and we see her little picture there, but you know, she was a woman who had people who loved her. She was a human being, you know, that she had a personality. Um, Her boyfriend called her his little woman, you know, and he just loved that little woman. And, you know, it really gives you a personal um, side to her, you know,
Sure.
more, it personalizes her more to us, to know those kinds of things. But from what I understand and was told, she had somehow, somebody had told her to stop by and they would do something with her. They liked pain pills, you know, it was something that she liked to do allegedly. And so she had stopped by there. She was with somebody else. She stopped by, and as long as, if I've got everything right, she went into the bathroom with some girl and they did a peel together. And then she left and went out and got back in the vehicle with who she was with. And they, as soon as they pulled out, she started grabbing at her chest and saying, that wasn't what that was. You know, what was that? That wasn't what that was. And started asking who the girl in the bathroom was. And then the next thing you know, they didn't have any Narcan with them. So they started CPR. They tried to keep her alive, but she did not live. And
That,
so allegedly her death is under investigation, and that's where it's been.
well, I hope the Commonwealth of Kentucky takes that seriously. And a couple things came to my mind as you were saying that. Number one, it's very easy for most of us to just say, "Oh, that's an addict, died of an overdose," right? And I have to say that I was guilty of that for most of my 49 years. It was just a few years ago that I got to know the Amanda Winkowski case and got to understand what happened, right? Just all of the other things that and all of the other things are really what she was. Not the addiction part. That's what grabbed her. And so it's very easy. We all need to fight against that urge to go, oh, mess with the bull, you get the horns kind of thing, because addiction is very different than that. It's making one bad choice. Sometimes you don't even make a bad choice. Sometimes a doctor prescribes you something and makes that choice for you, right? There are a lot of, or somebody gives it to you without your knowledge. There's a lot of times where people become addicted and they never even made the choice to do that, but even if they did make the choice, it's just one choice that they made, and now it ruins the rest of their lives. So we do need to fight against that urge to feel that way. And number two, the second thing that came to my mind when you were saying that, Elizabeth, is you know the the people in our society that are addicted to opiates, especially, are being taken advantage of, and they are being poisoned because
Yep.
they believe that they are taking heroin or whatever,
A pain pill.
a pain pill, and it's laced with something like fentanyl. And so
Yep.
they're actually being poisoned. They're not overdosing, they're being poisoned. And so, yeah, I hope that the Commonwealth takes that seriously, because here in Pennsylvania, each county has a drug task force that works with the Attorney General's office, works with the DEA, works with the FBI, and they try to trace those back to, okay, who was the dealer?
Yep.
Where did that dealer get the money? And typically, when they trace that back, they can find and charge with homicide the
Yep.
person who poisoned the victim. I hope that happens here.
I'm not sure how aggressive Kentucky has been on that kind of thing. I know that a lot of states have been very aggressive on charging, tracing that back and charging people with those deaths. That is a very good question. I'll have to look into that and see just how aggressive Kentucky has been doing that, because I've not heard of it,
Yeah,
honestly.
I think that, well, in the Commonwealth, especially of Pennsylvania, especially starting in about the 90s, there was a huge downturn economically, right? So it went from a booming steel and oil producing state to a nothing state, producing nothing state. And that's when that epidemic kind of just ran through. So that was what, 1991. Here we are in 2025. That's about how long it took for things to really get rolling. But I mean, I see it pretty frequently. It's not like it's every day or even every week, but there will be a media release that we report on from the attorney general's office, that they have some sort of prosecution. I actually had one. I was covering a hearing day out in Clarion County, Pennsylvania, one time, and there was this kid that got convicted, as he pleaded guilty. He was the intermediary drug dealer, and it was actually really sad, because you start to see like the chain reaction of things. This kid grew up in a place where the only future that he had, if he wanted to make it, was dealing drugs. And he fought against it and fought against it and fought against it. He wouldn't do what all of his friends were doing, what his peers were doing. And he was trying to get a good education, like a, what do you call it, like a trade education. And then one day just decided, I've had enough of the struggle. Yeah, I'll go ahead and deal. And that ended up being a death in Clarion County. He was from Pittsburgh. And that ended up being like the one time he dealt drugs, according to him, death.
Mm.
So it's actually really sad how that works, right? The entire chain. It's multiple people that his life's ruined too. I mean, he didn't die, but his life is ruined too.
Yeah. I was watching yesterday. I like watching police, like dash cam and body cam
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
And they had pulled over. It was just a traffic stop. They had pulled over a car in Louisville, around Louisville, and they had come in from the airport. And honey, them three, it was three African American women, and their story was that they were coming for a funeral, a family member's funeral. They found so much
Oh,
methamphetamine and fentanyl and just you name it. They found so much in their car, in their bags, in all three of them's bags, that and they, as soon as they separated them, they all and started questioning them. They all were throwing each other under the bus. They were
really?
all saying, can you turn your camera off so we can talk? They were going to rat the rest of them out, left and right.
Well,
But
the
it,
temptation is huge, though. I mean, you can see somebody
yeah,
who's desperate. That temptation is just huge. Hmm.
the money
The
that they're
promise of
all,
the easy money. Yeah.
yeah,
Let's
ten
see.
thousand dollars for a few, hours of your
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind being paid $3,000 an hour, right? I get the temptation. Whew. Hey, I wanted to
Yeah,
say thank you to Robin for the $10 super chat, and then Susan, thank you for your super chat. She says, in a town where everyone knows everything, victims don't stand a chance of living normal lives going forward. I think
so
that's the fear.
you know.
I mean,
Well, because they will come after you. They will. Whether it's through your family members, through your children, they'll reach out to your children's coaches. They will come after you and make your life miserable. You know,
either
and if you're
directly or
not,
sideways, they'll get it done, huh?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, yeah, that part. And it seems like they can do it with impunity. There's nobody there to stop them.
Oh yeah, that prosecutor reached out to my kids' baseball coach and tried to bully him into unfriending me on Facebook.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and he was like, eh, "Dude, her kids are my kids. Like, I'm their
Yeah.
coach. They he's been their coach for years and years. Like that wasn't gonna fly." The fact that he had even the audacity to try to do that, imagine if it was somebody else that, that nobody really would miss or something,
Yeah. Yeah. What Elizabeth is talking about here is there's I mean, was he the brother-in-law of Judge Mullins? Is that the deal? And
Hmm.
he didn't like it that you were talking about the case online, and he full on went on a rant on Facebook saying anybody who is friends with this person is not going to be a friend of mine. And that actually is it's a little bit more of a threat in that he is a powerful person in that area.
Oh
It's
yeah,
not just
he was threatening people in his own office, threatening their jobs,
over something as silly as your right to talk about something that you want to talk about.
or somebody being a Facebook friend.
No, but that's the kind of stuff that he's trying to do, right? He's trying to leverage you to see that he's trying to exert leverage over you to make you change the way you live your life, do your thing.
Oh, he tried to socially isolate me, and in a way, it kind of worked at first because people just took him for his word and believed what he was saying until people started looking into it, and then they were like, "Wait a minute, like he's not even telling the truth."
Well, maybe that is I mean, I want victims to come forward because they feel inclined to do so, not pressured to do so. But this is a great case study. You didn't back down. You didn't back down. And wh- in the end, what did he do? Nothing. He got nothing
Nothing.
done.
Well, he tried. He See, that's one of the ways that I think they really keep people silent is, he mentioned, oh, well, she's monetized. Her stuff is monetized. So don't go watch any of her stuff, you guys. Don't do anything. Don't let her make any money. And I've always said that's how they silence people. Either they will come after your job, if they were friends or had some kind of political connection with your employer,
Mm-hmm.
you're more than likely going to lose your job. They're going to let you go, out of loyalty to him or whatever. And as we see with one of the girls who came forward, who tried to come forward on her own TikTok stuff, her own social media stuff, she claimed to be a victim of Judge Mullins, and now she was fired from her job. She was indicted for stealing money from her job, and now she's looking at like 15 years in prison over felony charges. She had to delete all of her social media, and from what I have been told by several people, that they went in to talk to him, this prosecutor, the same one that did all this to me, the brother-in-law, and all he could talk about was saying that her videos that he had every single one of them saved and downloaded, and that her stuff had hurt his niece and nephew, and he was going to make sure that she served every bit of 15 years in prison. Now, that's retaliation. And
Yeah.
then I think he recused himself from the case, if I'm not mistaken. I think he recused himself after, setting the ball in motion.
But did it stay in his office or
I
did it
don't
go to
know.
that?
She's
Yeah.
still facing charges. She's still facing charges, and she's been silenced. She's not allowed to talk about any of it.
Did you
She's had
see
to
any of
delete
those
it.
videos? Any of those TikTok videos?
Yeah, I saw a couple of them. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Wow.
And these people, most of the victims are not people who were educated and who had, really great jobs, but she was one of the people who had successfully completed treatment, and she had gotten her a job, and she had worked her way up to management of a department in a certain local store. And then for her, people started calling in complaining to her job, because of her social media, and
Yeah.
so she ended up losing her job. And then after she lost her job, the next thing she knew, there was an indictment coming down saying that she had stole a whole bunch of money from her job. And, I'm not convinced. I know how easily this stuff can all get manufactured.
And we talked about indictments, by the way, on the channel just last week. Somebody had a question about why sometimes people are indicted and sometimes people aren't. The indictment process is simply a jury that there's no defense in there. It's only the prosecution, and they just have to prove probable cause. It is the easiest thing to show. Probable cause is the lowest bar, the lowest legal bar. So if you can convince 12 people to vote, and it's not doesn't have to be unanimous in most places. So those grand juries, it just needs to be majority usually, right? So if you
Mm-hmm.
can if you can get 7 people to say, "Yeah, I think that's probably right," then you get an indictment.
Mm-hmm. They say you can indict a ham sandwich.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty crazy.
There's no
Goodness,
defense attorney. There's no
correct.
defense that gets to put on the case. It's only the prosecutor that gets to put on that their case, and that is what is been going on in the Stines case. With They said that the prosecutor had a meeting with a grand jury, and they didn't record it.
Yeah, because it's
And
sealed.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, it's
mm-hmm.
not supposed to be recorded.
Oh
So,
no, they are. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They are supposed to be recorded. Anytime they have a grand jury meeting, they're supposed to record the meetings, and then whenever they get their discovery, they get a copy of that
of
audio.
the grand
Of
jury,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
and they
So then
accidentally didn't record it.
they purposefully didn't record it. He said that they were not taking any testimony. The prosecutor said they were not taking any testimony. All they were doing were seeking the um, subpoenas. But the grand jury was asking them questions during that meeting about the civil case and about Ben Fields and about how all that was connected with the deposition to this case. And the prosecutor would redirect them and they would not answer the questions that they were being asked. So, whenever the Bartleys got the discovery, now this shows us that the Bartleys are reading every single word of this discovery because when they got it all and they started going through it, they said, wait a minute, this grand juror is referencing a previous meeting that we don't have a record for. One of the grand jurors, was brought up the previous meeting that they had on record on the recording,
Oh.
and the Bartleys caught that. I'm impressed.
Hey,
I'm impressed.
a lot of people were like, "Hey, the Bartleys, they're personal injury attorneys. This is their first homicide case, or whatever." No, these guys have been impressing the crap out of me. They've been doing a really good job. And
Yeah,
even
me
like
too.
when I was looking at, I don't think I have it queued up here, but the there was a hearing. It was at the very beginning. I think it was when they were moving to get a mental competence. No, it wasn't competence. What was it? It was
The
it doesn't.
extreme emotional disturbance.
Yeah, they were making a motion. There was a hearing, so the three of them are sitting by video, doing this with the judge, and I sat there. Jeremy Bartley was the one talking the whole time, and I can't remember his wife's name right now. Carrie, is that what it is? Carrie
Carrie.
Bartley. I was like, dude, I do not want to cross Carrie Bartley. Like I can tell that she is on this. Like,
Look at that hand on
I
her
know,
hip, man.
I know.
She is one bad mamma
No,
jamma.
they are. They're well, but that actually brings up something we talked about earlier or late last week. We were emailing back and forth. Remember, we were talking about the motion that or the what was it? The affidavit that they filed in the civil case because Jeremy Bartley has been out there talking to anybody who will ask him questions, and I've been kind of taken aback. Like, I cannot believe a defense attorney is talking this much in such a tiny town in a place where he wants to choose a jury. I can't believe that he's doing this. And I think he slipped up along the way because he had to file an affidavit saying, my client has never said anything, that he lied in the depositions, or something like that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, he was saying that he didn't mean to convey that Mickey had lied in any way in his deposition.
I'm sure Pillersdorf would had been watching everything that Jeremy Bartley was saying on TV and on the internet. I bet he was watching it all. So,
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
very
oh yeah.
interesting. This case, man. Well, I was going to ask you because there was something that you sent to me earlier. Like, it appears that in Kentucky, anyway, this case where we're all just shaking our heads at the corruption that we're just seeing all over the place, the abuse of power, lots of big fish in a tiny pond, right? Really abusing power. And guys, we're not talking just like throwing their weight around. No, they are SAing people. They're doing it they're doing it methodically and systematically in this little, I don't know if I want to call them a cabal or like a cartel of powerful people are doing horrible felonious acts against other people. But it seems like that's not just in Letcher County because you told me about a case where a dude is still waiting for trial 15 years after his arrest, his homicide arrest. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, yeah. So his name is Brian Gallagher, and it's out of Rowan County, Kentucky, and it's really just a tearjerker of a case. He had went out to a bar one night and met a little old girl, and they hooked up, and they had only been together for about 3 months. And she had two kids. She had like a 9-year-old little girl and a 2-year-old little boy. And one day the kid is in daycare, and allegedly it falls off of the top of a playground, a piece of playground equipment, like a slide or something, and it fell head first onto the ground.
This
He
little
was two.
toddler,
Yes.
little boy.
So yeah, little boy. His name was Nathaniel. And so the daycare takes him to the doctor. They don't, unless I have this wrong, and I don't think that I do, but from the way that I understood it, um, they did not notify the mother, the father, nothing, that he had fallen, that there was any kind of accident. They just took him to the doctor and had him check him out. And then they sent him back to the daycare. The next day, they still never notified the parents. The next day, they are, and this is farm country up there. So they do a lot of farming in that area of Rowan County. And they must have been on the farm somewhere. And the little boy, there he is. He was got around a baby calf, and the baby calf ended up stepping on him on his stomach area. Well, the mommy took him to the hospital. She took him to 3 different hospitals, trying to get care for this child. And the doctor who ended up seeing him did a CT scan, ordered a CT scan of the head because of so many conflicts of interest and connections in this case. Um, the same doctor that saw him when he fell off of the equipment was the same doctor that ended up seeing him later
Okay.
on. So that he knew that he had fallen. So he ordered the CT scan of the head, but he only ordered an X-ray of the body. Well, the child ended up having a perforated bowel from when the calf
Oh,
stepped on his belly. The X-ray did not discover that. He
right.
needed a CT scan of the body, but they didn't order that. Well, the baby died like a week later from infection
Yeah.
in his stomach. He went septic, I think, and he
Yeah.
died. They did an autopsy, and they immediately said it was child abuse, and they charged the mommy and her boyfriend Brian with murder of, of this child.
And this is in
And
2010.
that, yes, and well, and I started looking. I said, because his daddy has drove 2.5 hours twice, one way, twice, just to come talk to me about this case. And he has investigated this fully. He's lost his own farm. He's had to sell every piece of equipment that him and his wife ever owned. He's now working for somebody else's farm. The boy has just got such PTSD, from being called a baby unaliver, and just the stress of going through so many prosecutors and going through so many judges and going through so many defense attorneys who did not seem to have their best interest in mind.
So this is the person that you were just talking about is the boyfriend of the mom. That's what you're saying, or the biological father of the mom.
No, well, he was the boyfriend. They had only been together about 3 months, but as soon as they started finding out all that the hospital and the doctors had missed, and like the daycare not telling them about him falling, and them taking him to the doctor, and just all of that mess, when all of that started coming out, she said, "I'm going to sue that hospital." And the next thing you know, they were both charged with red rum. But
Mm.
you can look further and look deeper, and you see one of the police officers that was involved in this case, his wife worked at the hospital. Another one's daddy worked at the hospital. Another one of the social workers' grandfathers worked, in the
Wow.
office. There was a whole, it seems to me like there was a whole lot of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, I need a favor, do this for me. And then so they did it and then walked away from the case. And this has just been a huge one cover up right after another, of their own negligence and wrongdoing in this case. And
Wow.
the boy who is still awaiting trial had a brother. His brother struggled with drugs and was being chased by the police, one of the same officers that was involved in his brother's case. It turns out to be, once we get all the documents and we start looking at the paperwork and we find out the same officers are involved
Yeah.
in same cases and stuff, it's just mind blowing. But they go to do a pit maneuver on the boy, they wreck him and throw him out the windshield, and he dies. So the daddy loses the other son, um, in that tragic of a fashion, after they've been fighting for the other one. So it's really a case.
Wow. Wow. No, these are the kinds of things that will grab you too. Like, by the way, Nifty 5050 says, knowing what's going on there, I hope Elizabeth is safe. I think Elizabeth is safe as long as she stays chatty, as long as she doesn't let him stop her. That's funny.
That's right.
No, this kind of stuff, well, this could be your Ellen Greenberg case where you just can't let it go, right?
Absolutely. I'm hooked. I'm
Yeah.
hooked. We're gonna see this through. We'll do as many stories. This is one of those cases where they already have all the evidence to prove every bit of this. Like you don't have to believe anybody's word. They've got it in proof. It's in black and white right before your eyes.
Just get it
They've
in
got,
front of a jury, right?
yeah, absolutely.
So what's the stall? Why for 15 years has he been waiting to have resolution on his case?
Everybody just keeps stepping out of the case. People keep recusing. Judges keep. They can't keep a judge in the case. They can't keep a prosecutor in the case. The prosecutors, former prosecutors, have even been heard, and it's in writing, saying that they don't have enough evidence to go forward with this trial.
So you drop the
But
case. That,
drop the case. Exactly.
yeah, that
Here's
is
the
their
thing.
number one duty as a prosecutor is you prosecute if you think there is a crime and you think that you can prove to a jury that there's a crime. If there's not, drop the case.
Well, here's the thing. This is why I think they won't. Because they bullied the mommy. As soon as the police got into the mommy and the boyfriend, Brian, they pitted them against each other
Yeah.
immediately, you know. And
Yeah.
the mommy didn't have anybody to support her. She didn't have family like Brian had his dad to really step up, and like his whole life's mission now has been trying to prove his son's innocence. And this little girl pled guilty in 2014, I think, or 2016. I think it was 2014, but she still has not been sentenced. So I think it was one of those conditional pleas that you go ahead and plead guilty now, you testify against him at his trial, and then we'll sentence you to probation afterwards. And
Yeah.
where he's not to trial, they've postponed and postponed her
She
sentence.
pleaded guilty to like child neglect or something like that.
Some. I'm
So,
not even sure, but yeah, she pled guilty. It's in those articles.
hey, JoJo's Crime Line Mysteries. Gavin, I thought all grand jury was confidential. Does that differ per state? I honestly thought that grand juries that was all sealed, but it is part of the
Well,
discovery.
the grand jurors themselves are always anonymous. They never know when the grand jury meets. But whenever somebody is, charged or indicted,
Indicted.
and they get their discovery, they get an audio file. I got one myself, so I know. You get an audio file of the grand jury testimony, for your discovery, so you
Yeah.
know what and said, you
I've
know.
never seen grand jury testimony make it into trial, for example. I've never seen that happen. I've never seen them refer back to, well, let's go back to the transcript of the grand jury. That's never happened that I'm aware of. I've never seen it anyway. So,
I'm not
but
sure about any of that.
I mean, it's the equivalent. Being indicted is the equivalent of being held over for court in other places. Like in Pennsylvania, you go before a district judge. You're given a preliminary hearing, and the prosecution basically is trying to show the judge that they have probable cause. If the judge says they have probable cause, they'll hold it over for court. Now, in that case, it's all an open meeting. So, but it accomplishes the same thing. It makes me wonder why we still do grand juries. We do it on a
Well,
federal level too.
they do it twice in Kentucky. So you have it all on the misdemeanor level on the district court, like Judge Mullins. So if you're arrested for DUI, say, you have to go in front of him first. Say if it's a aggravated, if it's just going to stay in his court, it would just stay with him in the misdemeanor. But say it was an aggravated DUI, you'll go in front of him, district, and then the judge would say, well, we're going to hold it over for grand jury. I think that there's probable cause here to hold it over for a
Uh,
grand, and they can hold you in jail up to the way it used to be. If it's still the same way, the prosecutor had 60 days to indict you. If you were not indicted within that 60-day window, then they had to release you from jail. But they could indict you 30 days down the road and then come back out and pick you up and arrest you and bring you back to jail. And then you won't go to the district judge, the
then you go
district
up
court.
to the higher court.
Then you go upstairs. Yeah, and it just starts all over again, the process
Yeah, that's
of
that's similar.
appeal.
I know down in Mississippi, for example, in the Kirby Carpenter case, they only convene grand juries twice a year. So if you are held over for a grand jury, and the grand jury just convened yesterday, then it's 6 months. You'll sit in jail until the grand jury.
Well, I was told by an attorney that the reason why they didn't think that it was going to fly with the prosecutor saying that they didn't record that meeting because it was just for the subpoenas is because they said if that was the case, the grand jurors didn't have to be there to do that. Like they could have done that without the grand jurors actually being there. If all they were doing was just signing for subpoenas, just getting
No.
subpoenas,
Okay,
that
so
I don't know. I
they
don't
were
know.
probably working within the minutia of the law to try to work to their advantage. Probably is what
Yeah.
happened. Uh, can the Gallaghers file civil rights complaint with the U.S. Attorney's Office, FBI for civil rights violations, police misconduct, prosecutorial misconduct?
Well, I got to thinking, and I asked him right at the end of our meeting. I said, did this happen to be an election year?" And then I got to thinking, and I said, 2009 was the year that our governor appointed Judge Mullins to our district court, and then
Mm,
2010 he had to run in the election to get the job back. So that was an election year that this
mm,
happened,
yeah.
and so
To answer your question, Deidre, maybe you can file something, but unless there is federal jurisdiction, you're not going to get anywhere. Police misconduct, as much as we would love that to be federal, is not. That is not a federal offense usually, unless there are some mitigating circumstances, but yeah. And a lot of people ask this question, Elizabeth, like trying to appeal to a higher authority, right? Like here in Podunkville, Pennsylvania, our sheriff is a despot and keeps everybody under the thumb, and he's got the judge in his back pocket and everything. What if we just bring in the FBI? You can't just bring in the FBI unless there is federal jurisdiction. It,
Well, and they have to be invited. They have to be asked in,
Usually,
don't they?
yeah, yeah. The only reason, well, there's one exception that I can think of off the top of my head, and that was in the Karen Reed trial. The FBI did a federal investigation into police misconduct within the Boston PD, but they had like an interstate commerce side of it. They were able to bring it into the federal purview, the federal jurisdiction. But
And I think I also heard that it was the second pathologist. Whenever the family had hired the independent pathologist to do another autopsy on her, and
yeah,
it came back that it was murder and not suicide. I heard that that also had a big part in the FBI deciding to take a look at it. I don't know if that's true
in
or
which
not.
case? In which case?
In the Sandra Birchmore case.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was that one. That one. Yeah, the FBI got involved too. You're right. That,
Because
that
they had said it was that she had self harmed, and
yeah,
for like 3 years it had been
it had been treated
put
that way. Yeah.
yeah it had been put up on the shelf and forgotten about.
No, and that is one of that stuff kills me. Well, again, Ellen Greenberg. That's what they tried to do with Ellen Greenberg. They did that with Amanda Winkowski. They didn't call it self unaliving. They called it an accidental overdose. But when you look at the freaking toxicology, they tested for metabolites of the substance that she supposedly overdosed on, and no metabolites were there. Right? Come on, right? Same thing with David Elmquist is an example that I can think of that you may not know about. It's one that I've looked into. Happened in Minnesota. The police say he like took crude oil, poured it over himself, and lit himself ablaze like some sort of uh, you know
Sacrifice.
South, yeah. Like, what do you call that? A protest, like some sort of like nobody does that. Nobody takes their own life by burning themselves, self-immolation, right? But no, yeah, that's how they sweep those things under the rug a lot of times. That's
Jennifer
tough.
Hill.
Jennifer Hill.
That's a good question, but I don't know how anybody would even get a hold of her autopsy. You know, especially with it if it is pending investigation. You
Yeah,
know, but
I
how
wonder
do
if
you know if it really is pending investigation or if somebody's just told them that? Oh well, we're investigating it.
which is also, I mean, I don't want to just like bag on cops because good cops we absolutely love and treasure. It's the corrupt cops that we don't like. But in the Ellen Greenberg case, in the state of Pennsylvania, which is the state, which is the same in every other state within our beautiful nation, about to turn 249 years old. Um, self unaliving is not a crime. It's not a crime. You can do that to yourself. There's no crime. And when the Greenbergs went and asked for her police file, they cited that it's exempt from public disclosure because of the criminal investigation. There's no crime, according to them. So why aren't you letting it out?
Right.
You know, that sort of stuff just kills me.
I
Kills
know.
me.
It does me too. It does me too. And now they've got a new law. I reckon that they're going to make it harder for people to get public records in Kentucky.
What's the new law?
I don't even know. I just saw that Kentucky was making it after July something. I sent it to you. I'm not
Okay.
sure. I
I'm
didn't read
sorry.
it. I just
Yeah.
read the title. It just said that it wasn't that we after a certain date in July, it was going to be a lot harder for us to get public records.
And that is the exact opposite of what should happen. It should be easier over time. Um, I just, yeah, I don't get it. That sort of stuff kills me. Hey, getting back to Judge Mullins' case, what are the next steps? What are we going to see in this case coming down the pipe?
Well, you've got a couple motions that are in front of the court right now, with both the cases, with the civil case and with the criminal case. Mickey's case, they have requested a dismissal, which the judge is never going to dismiss this case. So I don't even know why they do
Oh,
that. I know it's a I know
it's
it's
just
just a
it's just a
motion,
legal
but
step. Yeah, yeah.
they would never dismiss this case on a technicality. There's with that video showing what he did, I just do not ever see that being a
Well, have
possibility.
you seen the motion to dismiss, or is
Yeah,
it
I've got
public?
all of it.
So,
hmm
what is their reasoning? What's their argument?
Well, the Bartleys are saying that because they didn't record that grand jury
Mm,
testimony meeting, that they've requested the case be dismissed, and they're getting ready to file for a bond hearing for Mickey. We haven't heard anything yet on that, but that was mentioned in there.
hmm.
Um, and in the civil case, Ned Pillersdorf had petitioned the court to reopen the discovery window so
That's
he
right.
could redepose Mickey. But here's where I think it's going to be sticky. I think they really messed up, and I think they should have known better when they didn't name Mickey in his personal capacity, when they only named him in his professional capacity, because they've removed him from that lawsuit now,
Right.
replaced him with the new sheriff, Billy Jones, in the official capacity. But they were claiming that Mickey failed to train and supervise, and that he should have known what Ben was doing. Well, I think that because they failed to name him in his personal capacity, now that they've pulled him from the lawsuit, like how is Billy Jones gonna be, or the sheriff's department, gonna be held responsible for what Mickey failed to do? Like, I'm afraid this whole lawsuit's gonna end up getting dismissed because people didn't do what they should have done on the lawyer side. Now, here's my argument, okay?
All right.
You might you might not agree with me, but here's my argument. I think that whenever this case was filed, whenever they were going through and deciding who they and how they were going to name people in this lawsuit, I think that it was purposefully not that they did not name Judge Mullins. I think they could have named Judge Mullins in his professional capacity because it was his chambers that this was all taking place in. Now,
Yeah.
they couldn't have had to have named him in his personal capacity, just in his professional, because just because they were his chambers.
But would
Okay.
he enjoy high immunity? I think he would.
I think you would.
That's probably why they didn't name him because he would be immune.
Well, Ned said, this is what Ned said, and he
Okay.
said this in an interview. The reason why he didn't name Judge Mullins, because he was asked,
Oh, okay.
and he said it was because when we file a lawsuit, we have to do it in good faith, that we are naming people in good faith, and we didn't have any proof, like they didn't have a video or anything of Judge
Mm,
Mullins. Now, I think that would have applied in his personal capacity, but I don't think that argument applies in his professional capacity. But now this is just my opinion, okay?
sure,
And I
sure.
and I And I change my opinion all
I
the
do too. I'm
time.
a professional waffler. That's what I do.
Me too. But I think that there were maybe there were some personal decisions, personal reasons why they only went so far with that lawsuit with naming certain people. I wonder why the jail wasn't named in that lawsuit, because a majority of the payments for the house arrest were taken by his wife Angie while she was on duty at the jail. They went
Right.
in and paid all these payments at the jail. Um, I think that there were many other people that could have been named in this lawsuit, and I think that it was a strategic decision, maybe for themselves. We have to live and work in this area. At that
Maybe.
time, at that time, Judge Mullins was not dead.
Of
He had not
course.
been shot yet.
Yeah.
So he was still the golden boy that ruled Letcher County in eastern Kentucky. He was the one, he was the state's golden boy that was running the pilot
For
programs
the
in the state.
drug, yeah, rehab and all
Yeah,
that. Yeah, the to play just a little bit of devil's advocate here, and you're
please.
entitled to your opinion. That's perfectly fine. But Ned did say that there was no love lost between he and Mickey Stines. He had sued Mickey Stines like 4 times.
Mhm.
I don't know that
I don't
I
think it was because of Mickey.
well,
I
what
think
I'm
it was
saying is I think that that's
the
an
legal
indication that
system.
Ned doesn't care. He doesn't like that might be an indication that Ned's like, I'll take on anyone. I mean, he was married to a state Supreme Court justice. He wasn't very afraid of anyone. This is just me playing devil's advocate. I don't know, right? And I don't even really have an opinion on this yet. I'm just trying to think it out, right? Yeah, it's interesting because you're right. The thing about Judge Mullins is that he was running this pilot program along with other folks in the county. Part of that, I think, part of that cartel of folks that were very powerful in the area. Um,
He
there,
had that connection to ARC.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, he was kind of the golden boy, and he was making speeches around the state. Like there,
And you also had the Attorney General's office, who took the plea bargain with Ben Fields and never investigated any further. Nobody else. There
yeah,
were
that is.
accusations of other people that were involved in the SA.
Yeah, you know what? The I'm trying to think of the other victims, okay? You've talked to several of them. There are journalistic mechanisms that could be used to keep their information private and still report on it. You and I ought to talk about that. Especially if there are multiples. If there are more than, let's say 3, I think that we could probably get their stories out without endangering their identities. Because my guess here is that if there are 3 victims, there are 300 victims, right? It's not like that group of guys are going to go, oh, well, that was Mary. That was definitely Mary in 2021. No, they probably abused 30 women that year, right? They wouldn't know.
I think
So,
it was hap- I think it was all happening. Like one this latest story that I've heard, the woman, she blames herself. Like, she does not want to come forward in no way, shape, or form. She says, because I heard that if we didn't have the money, that we could go work something out with them. She said, so I didn't have the money and I didn't want to go back to jail. And so I asked them. She said, I asked them, if can we work something out?
but she
And
should understand that in that power paradigm, she didn't have the power. She was coerced into that. Like, and I mean, I don't understand. Like, I'm trying to be sympathetic to it, right? Like, I can sympathize that you may feel guilt.
mhm. Oh, I
Um,
agree.
but but like logicking it out, going through the rational thought. No, that was that was SA. That's what that
It
was.
doesn't matter if she did approach them.
Yeah,
They had a duty to say no.
it it's the equivalent of a 16-year-old girl approaching a grown man.
Her
It's
teacher.
yeah, or her teacher or something like that. It doesn't matter. He is the one that is responsible for keeping her safe. So,
But the way that we saw Matt Easter, the AG's investigator, the way that he framed every bit of the interviews and the audio files that we see is like, oh, you took advantage of the opportunity. Oh, so whenever he started flirting with you, oh, so you saw an opportunity that you didn't have to pay for your stuff. Like, I feel like he put the narrative in all of those recordings and those interviews as they were the ones who had seduced him.
yeah, but I like again, devil's advocate here, and I know you and I have different thoughts on this. By the way, guys,
Yeah.
in and I'm speaking to our audience here. This is how you disagree with somebody without being disagreeable and still being friends. Like it feels like in at least in the United States in this world, like people have a hard time disagreeing with one another and still loving one another. It's crazy, but just playing devil's advocate here. Um, Dang it, what were we? Oh, I think Detective Easter. I think he was using that as like a investigative mechanism to get them to talk more. I really do, especially with Ben Fields. Maybe not. Maybe I could come around to your side in his conversations with Sabrina Atkins. But with Ben, dude, he was doing everything he could to make Ben just feel completely comfortable to spill the beans on all of his felonies. And I thought that he was doing a pretty darn good job at it.
Well, he did. I'll give you that one with Ben. I know that that was a tactic that you used, but they weren't suspects. Those women weren't suspects. They were victims. And I
Yeah,
just think it makes a lot more sense. They were female victims who were taken advantage by a male authority figure in law enforcement. And so I feel like it would have been a lot smarter of a move for them to have sent a female
I agree.
investigator to talk to them and discuss with them, because I disagree with what you just said about that he was getting them to talk more, because he didn't get the women to talk more. They shut up. They clammed up.
I
They
think
were
that's fair.
telling they were telling some stuff, but he would cut them off and he would say things in a way where he was doubting them, and they felt you could just feel them, that they felt his doubt. I could feel it in his
Yeah,
voice.
I think that's probably a good compromise for both. I think you're right. I think that I probably need to move in your direction, especially with the women on that. And I also think that that yeah, why they sent a dude out to talk to SA victims, female SA victims, that no.
And they have a whole task force. They have a whole sex trafficking task force on the AG's in the AG's office. Why didn't
Yeah.
you use that task force?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. I wonder if they just didn't believe him in the beginning. I wonder if Matt Easter went down there going, "This isn't a thing," and then with when he was faced with this is a thing, he had to like do a 180 and actually investigate. Maybe that's what happened.
well, I think he put a big emphasis on physical force versus coercion.
Yeah,
He kept saying, but he didn't force you,
he didn't
right?
make
He
you.
didn't
Yeah.
force you. Yeah. Well, yeah, he did. Yes, he did. In
Hmm.
every way. Yes, he did.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with you there. I think that's well reasoned. for sure.
and he only got 6 months in jail. Like they were gonna get the guilty plea. Why didn't he lawyer up? Like he knew better than that. Could that have even been orchestrated? I mean, I don't
You're
know.
talking about
I'm not.
Ben Fields?
Yeah,
Oh, I think it's just because he's an idiot. The guy doesn't have two brain cells to rub together. You have an attorney that automatically represents you. It,
yeah,
automatically. And I mean, everybody who's watching this is a smart person, so they know to avail themselves of their rights. Ben Fields was not a smart person, for which I'm grateful. Like, I really love stupid criminals for the fact that you can just count on them to be stupid. Yeah, like, dude, get your. Everybody who's watching, if you ever are questioned by police, get a lawyer. Avail yourself of your rights, but unless you're guilty, and then talk to him as much as you want. I'm totally cool with that. That's
nobody else talked. He was the only one that talked. His wife lawyered up immediately.
yeah. She has an IQ over 4. I mean, it doesn't take much to like. Let's see. I work in a sheriff's office. I have a union. The union has lawyers, and they tell me in my little manual every other page, call your rep. Hello.
Well, he tried to lie out of it at first,
He
at the
did.
beginning of the interview. And I wonder if he didn't just think that he was smart enough and good enough to go sit in that interview and lie.
No, that is the classic blunder that we see over and over again. Talking about like watching badge cam stuff and watching interrogations and stuff like that. It's like it's like the person being interrogated just needs the sugar, just needs the candy of knowing what the cops know. And so they're willing to play the game. And all they have to do is just say to themselves, I don't care what they know, because if they knew enough, I'd be in handcuffs right now, or I'd be in front of a judge right now. So all you have to do is just go, you know what? I would like a lawyer, and from here on out, I'm going to exercise my right under the Fifth Amendment to remain silent. Cross your arms, shut up. That's all you have to do. But
They
criminals are
go.
stupid.
They go. They think that they're the smartest one
Yeah,
in the room and that they can talk their way out of anything. I think that they get so used to lying to people, like in their immediate circles,
yeah,
and people let you lie. Like I let my kids lie to me. I don't
sure.
always tell them that I know they're lying.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us do that. And I think people think that they're better liars than what they really are. But,
Well, that is
you know,
my what I just discussed is what I call my iron law of criminal mastermindery. It's a long word. I should have an abbreviation that. But here's the iron law. If you believe that you have what it takes to be a criminal mastermind, that is evidence in and of itself that you have not what it takes to be a criminal mastermind. It's those of us who doubt ourselves, those are the ones that have what it takes.
well, even the lawyers have a rule that only fools represent themselves.
Yes.
Even
Yeah.
lawyers need lawyers.
Yep. Yeah, that is the case. Hey, I wanted to say thank you to Denise for her super chat. I put it up here in just a couple minutes ago. Thank you for that. Let me see if there are a couple of other comments that we want to get to before we go. Gavin, this chat is really good at having differing opinions and still staying friendly. That is why I enjoy being here. Well, I'm glad. And here's the thing: it's not just a facade. We're not just being friendly with each other. We're friends. We
Yeah.
like one another. And one of my closest friends, Elizabeth, that I've known for years, is I mean, if there was like a mirror that would show you the exact opposite of who you are,
Yeah.
that's what my friend Kenny is to me. Like,
Yeah.
we are, from the way that we present ourselves externally, to our political beliefs, to our, everything about us is just diametrically opposed, and yet he is one of the people that I love most in this world. He's just freaking amazing. So yeah, I wish. I think that there are a lot of people like us. I think there are a
I
lot of people like this, but it's hard to see it right now.
I
Um,
think
Susan says rational thought does not apply in these situations. Rational thought. What is she? Which situation do you think she's talking about there?
probably essaying situations.
Okay. Yeah. What are your thoughts on the Koberger plea deal? What do you think?
I think he's guilty. I
Yeah.
think he did it.
Yes.
And so I think a plea bargain will save the families from all the suffering that a trial would bring.
Yeah.
I think it's a good idea.
Well, one of the I have a little Slack channel for my awesome group of volunteers, and there were a couple in there. I'm not going to name you guys or anything, but we're talking about, well, why didn't, if he was just going to plead guilty anyway, why didn't he just do it in the beginning? And it boils down to human incentives, right? He had no incentive to plead guilty in the beginning. If he felt like he could get away with it, if he felt like they didn't have enough evidence,
Mhm.
there's no incentive to plead guilty. Just plead innocent and go through the process. And I think now it's gotten to the point where they're like, okay, listen, everybody knows you did it. Like his lawyers were like, we know you did it. Uh, they know you did it. They can prove it to a jury that they did it. Now we just need to keep you alive. And I think that's when he started bargaining.
Well, I think that he was a one of these people that were obsessed with serial killers, and he studied and he went to school, and I think he was just bound and determined to become one that could get away with it. I think that's what he was trying to do. Like that video that you see of him and his dad when they're stopped by the police, and
Mm-hmm.
he's talking to that cop, and he realizes that they didn't stop me for that crime. You know, they're you can see it on his face, the enjoyment that he seemed to get out of
Mm.
to that police officer and them not knowing what I just did. You know what I mean?
Like
I,
getting off on that being, yeah,
yeah, yeah, and I think that he really truly thought he got away with it. I
got
do.
all the way back to Pennsylvania. I
Yeah,
mean, I
I
get,
think he was really trying to like be a like a BTK.
got to be smarter than that, though. I mean,
Yeah.
you just have to be smarter than that. Getting back to my iron law, right? Like you have to
Hmm.
be. Actually, my friend, I actually have multiple friends named Kenny. I have two. The other Kenny, Dr. Clark, who is a forensic pathologist. He's a quadruple board certified forensic pathologist. He's amazing. I've had him on the show a couple times. Kenny reminds me, hey, it's actually pretty hard to prove a murder. Like, it's hard to prove a murder. And so there are way many more murders out there that nobody knows about.
Hmm.
They never came to the medical examiner's office. Cops never showed up.
Yeah.
Right? There are way more uncounted murders than the ones that we know about. Um, so you do have, according to Kenny anyway, you have a good chance of getting away with it. But not if you're going to do stupid things. You're going to drive around like in your own car in a college town. Dude, there are cameras everywhere. What are you doing?
That's that's where I think people are now. They're starting to figure it out. Like he turned his phone off at one point, but he didn't turn it off until he got like he drove almost there and then he turned it off and then he went and did the crime and then after the crime he turned it right back on and then so you got him going in that direction before
Yeah.
he turned it off and then after he turns it back on you got him leaving from that direction
Like,
like
and
they
I don't,
don't understand the circumstantial stuff's gonna get you too.
the circumstantial stuff is powerful. And like, I see this all the time. I see it all the time when I'm covering a murder trial. Phone goes off. Okay, well, listen, Koberger, if you really wanted to be BTK, you really wanted to be like Israel Keys or something like that, right? You have to establish a pattern of you turning off your phone.
Yeah.
So here's an idea. Spend a year every night at 10:30 when you go to bed, turn off your phone. Don't turn it back on until 6 a.m. Then, when you're ready to do your crime, you've got cover because when you get to trial, it is it is your effort to conceal evidence that is in and of itself the circumstantial evidence that they use against you.
That will convict you.
What a dill hole. I mean, it's just
Yeah.
so dumb.
Like, how about not bringing your phone with you at all?
There's
You
a
know,
good idea. Here, here's an idea. Maybe you just leave it home. Oh my goodness.
that
Yeah.
phone, that phone right there would, I'm convinced, if they had search warrants on everybody who worked at the courthouse, their phones, and somebody said, "Oh well, but they have to have reason." Well, I think having a dead judge in his chambers is probable cause enough to do search warrants on the people who worked, or at least the people who were in his chambers that day that he had
Yeah.
interactions with that day. I think that would be enough probable cause to you know get a request for a search warrant granted. And I just think that phones, people are sloppy and they're stupid, just like you
Oh yeah.
said.
Yeah.
Every bit of it would be on the phone somewhere. They might have even tried to cover their tracks in some way, but there's just too many of them out there. There's too many ways for us to get caught.
Here's a good one. So everybody thinks about the Apple Watch, checking your physical fitness and everything like that, but your phone does that. It's not the watch, it's your phone. So well, the watch does it too, but there was a case I I shouldn't laugh. There was like the victim. The victim died, right? So there's nothing funny about this. The funny part is just how stupid the defendant was. Um so he poisoned a woman to death using mushrooms and then like put her inside of a metal like oil barrel, like a 55-gallon drum in their bedroom. Well, their bedroom was on the second floor and she died on the first floor. And the drums were outside near the garage. So he had to go and get the drum, take it up to the bedroom, go down, get her, take her up to the bedroom. She was a 200-pound woman. Dude, 200 pounds of dead weight. Have you ever lifted a bear that's dead? Like hunters, think about it, like a moose, or not an elk or something like that, right? Dude, that is heavy. So he is putting her into this container, right? And he freaking has his iPhone in his pocket the entire time. Like it's not funny in that we've got a murder here, but yes, that. And then that same guy offered to one of the people he was jailed with who was getting out. He offered a trade of his house if that guy would off a witness. And he wrote it in code, but it was the code equivalent of a Cracker Jack box. Like I was sitting in court going, what are you doing, man? This is the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Oh, people are
uh,
so dumb.
they think they're smart.
Yes, yes, they do. Mindhunters, yeah, educational. That's funny.
And people like to talk. I just saw one the other day where a guy was in jail for some crime, but he had unalived some woman, or his wife or somebody, girlfriend, and she had been missing for years. They'd never found her. He wasn't charged with it. He's in jail and buddies up with his jail buddy, his
Oh,
cellmate, and he says, "Hey, well, if you he's getting ready to get out the next week, and he says if you'll go dig her up." and move her for me. And so as soon as he got out, he told the cops, and he even drew a map where she was buried. And they went out and dug her up, and
There
now
she
he's in
is.
prison for life.
Oh
And
my
they didn't
goodness.
even have him charged with it.
Isn't that a
Which they,
weird isn't that a weird like human emotion to want to tell a secret? Like we all have it in us. I was telling you about the
yeah,
chair that I bought, right? Dude, I was going to have that thing delivered and nobody was going to know about it until it was delivered. And like 30 minutes after I ordered it, I go to my wife, "Hey, guess what I ordered?" Like we have that in us.
yeah,
You
we
can't
do.
you can't escape it. Can't escape it. Oh
People want to
man.
brag about it too.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, Koberger, man, that dude. That dude.
Psycho. Ted Bundy.
Yeah, except Ted Bundy was legitimately smart.
Yeah,
Ted Bundy was legitimately a genius, a Mensa level genius. And
yeah.
that's like, that's the other thing, the sickness of feeling that, of, of wanting to take a life. Like, have I told you about our whole raising rabbits thing for
A little
raising meat
bit.
rabbits? Yeah. Like the, the, I spent my
Did you
whole life
say
feeling
meat rabbits?
meat rabbits. Yeah. Have I told you about this? To eat.
No.
Okay.
No.
Well, have you ever had a rabbit?
I, I think it tastes like chicken,
Yeah,
if
it's
I
just,
remember
but
correctly.
better. Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. Okay. So, I was on this kind of kick where, like, for my whole life, I've shared this before. So several people in the audience have heard this story, but I'm going to tell you the story. Okay. Um, when I was a kid living up in Utah, living in a town of 200 people, it was very common for us to just go out with 22s out on the hill. And if we saw something moving, man, it was a target, right?
Yeah.
And so I can't even count the number of creatures that I ended as like an 8, 9, 10 year old kid. I just so many birds. Out in Utah, they have this little thing that's called a pot gut. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but it's basically a little ground squirrel. And actually, this is tangential. They only live in the Rocky Mountain West and in Pennsylvania in the county that I live in because somebody brought them like weirdly to this county. So anyway, they're called pot guts and they're just these little ground squirrels. And then we had rock chucks, which it's basically groundhog. I think it is a groundhog. We just called them rock chucks out there. Okay, so one day I'm out there with my buddy and I think we had pellet guns and we see a rock chuck and we start shooting at it and we don't have the firepower to put this poor thing out of its misery. It took us like 50 shots for this thing to finally die and it killed me inside. And I was like, I will never do anything like that ever again. It killed me. And so from then on, I think that was a summer vacation. I must have been 10. I was out with my grandparents. At that point, we lived in California. But anyway, I from that point on, I could not kill a spider. I could not kill a fly. I could not kill a mosquito. If a mosquito landed on me, I just waited for it to fly away. I couldn't, and I did that from the time I was 10 till the time I was about 40. I could not kill a thing. Okay. And this is going to come to something. Anyway, I got on this kick where I was like, I don't want to participate in for the very reasons that I just shared with you. I didn't want to participate in the industrial processing of animals. I have no problem eating animals, but we should not be treating animals this way. And so Kimberly and I talked about it. She's a vegetarian anyway. We decided we're not going to participate in that anymore. Any meat that we eat, we are going to raise, humanely dispatch, and feed to our children. And so what we decided to do was rabbits.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So
I like that.
Yeah, and you know what? And we did it with like gratitude. Like each time, like I had to change from the guy that could not kill a mosquito to I'm going to kill this creature in order to feed my children. But if I'm
Yeah,
going to do that, I want to express my gratitude to the animal. I want to make it fast. I want to give it a life that it fulfills its purpose, right? Because rabbits
yeah,
really are just bait to other predators. That's what they are. Same thing with like birds and stuff like that. So anyway, so that's what we did, and we were able to get to the point where, like, when it came time to dispatch rabbits, we went out there, we expressed our gratitude to the bunny. Thank you very much for your life and for feeding our family. And then lights out. And then we humanely processed it. We used every single piece of it, including tanning the hides with, I mean, everything. We didn't
wow.
throw away anything. Anyway, so getting back to this whole idea of like the the draw to kill.
Mm.
I do not feel that. It hurt every time I did that, and I did it like 100 times. And it was painful to me to do that every single time. I do not get people that are like, oh, I'm gonna get a rush, or I'm gonna get sexual pleasure out of
I know.
taking a life.
My my Alan, I guess he's 14 right now. I guess this is about 3 or 4 years ago. So he was 8 or 9. He wanted to shoot a bunny. He got him a BB gun, and he just got it in his head. He was gonna shoot. He was gonna hunt. He was
Mm-hmm.
gonna go
It's gonna
hunt.
be a man.
Yeah, and he shot that bunny, and it shot it in its like back leg and its side, but it stopped it from moving. And he thought it would kill it, but it didn't. It just shot it in the back leg, and I don't know if it paralyzed it or what, but it wouldn't move. So we put it in a box, and we it died. It ended up dying, and I told him later on that it got better and we turned it loose, but it killed him
Yeah,
after he did that. When he saw what the consequences were, like, it didn't just fall over dead. He
yeah,
thought that's what it was going to do, and it didn't, and it had to suffer then for like a whole day.
yeah.
um, I think I later on told him that it died. It didn't actually,
Once he was
run
old
away.
enough to, yeah.
Yeah, but it really hurt him. It really bothered him, and he never wanted to shoot nothing ever again.
Well, there are a
Never
lot of
had.
people. There are a lot of people that enjoy hunting because they take a life and like they feel it. I've never felt that. I've never felt. Well, no, it's not that I haven't. It's just that since I was about 10, I haven't felt that way, right? I felt that when I was a kid. But to this day, I'm still not a hunter or anything, and I'm okay with going out and hunting if I'm going to eat the animal. But if I'm just going to chop off its head and hang it on the wall, no, I have a
Yeah.
hard time with that.
I think it's
Yeah.
just how you're trained and how you're brought up about that stuff. My dad was the same way. Anything that we hunt, we eat. If we don't eat it, we don't shoot it.
Yeah.
And they would shoot enough deer. Like, he was allowed to have three, and my brother was allowed to have three, and so they would shoot them and they'd process them or have somebody process them. And that was the meat that we ate during the winter. That's
Yeah.
all. We never bought meat at the grocery store. We always bought or had deer meat in the freezer. But
Yeah.
that was, different areas are different. That was like up in Ohio where they graze like cattle. Down here, the deer eat different. They eat nuts and berries and stuff, and it makes their meat taste different and everything.
Oh
We
yeah.
just don't. Yeah, yeah. And I don't have men in my family down here either, so I'm not
Dude, here in
around men.
Pennsylvania, if I wanted to shoot a deer, I could just walk out my front door and just fire. I promise it would hit a deer somewhere. There's so many of those things. Anyway, yeah. That was a long conversation having to do. We started with Coburger.
That's all right. We have
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. That was fun. Glad you're here.
Yeah, no problem. I was supposed to go on court TV at 9, but they canceled this
Oh.
morning. So, but this is what my experience is. It's happened before, and so what I think happens is I think they might be dropping something that we haven't seen yet, because the last time this happened, they were expecting something. They were expecting
Oh.
a video, and it didn't come in on time, so they just postpone our show and they do something
So Court
else.
TV may have gotten something, huh? Or they think
I
they're
think
about to get something.
I think they might be getting something. That might be why they're asking me to come on for my
Yeah.
reaction to it and to drop it. And by postponing the show, whenever they do get it, they'll just holler at me then and we'll redo it.
Once that happens, we got to come back on.
Oh
Got to do
yeah,
this
yeah.
again. Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I'm gonna wrap us up here. Hang out for just 1 second, will you? All right. Good night. Guys, thank you so much for being here tonight. That last part, we were just chit chatting, having a good old time. Just a real quick reminder. Where's my button? That on Wednesday, we're going to have Anna Sonoda back. We're going to be talking about protecting our children from predators. So please, 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 if you have any questions for Anna, let me know so that I can get those her way. And then you can always reach me on my website, gavinfish.com. Go to contact me to send me in those questions. While you're there, please head over to the fish tank, which is where we hang out on Facebook. You're always welcome there. With that, I bid you adieu, and I will see you on the next one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing. And if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below.